Let us discuss today the issues related to 24th August 2015 newspaper. The first thing is related to the UFA summit and follow-up action related to the UFA summit. At the UFA summit, both the Prime Ministers decided on 5 follow-on steps in the joint statement. These include, one major thing is National Security Advisor level talks on all issues connected to the terrorism. Now, the cross-border issues, they majorly define the relationships between India and Pakistan. In this context, Mr. Aziz, the National Security Advisor of Pakistan, in his visit to India, he has sent an invitation to Hurriyat Conference leaders to meet. And it was a regular practice from Vajpayee Manmohan Singh era on the sidelines of the Pakistani meetings. Meeting of Hurriyat Conference generally happens. Now the government gave a red line that the security advisor shall not meet the Hurriyat Conference leaders and Kashmir shall be kept out of this particular discussions. So, Mr. Aziz has mentioned that the UFA declaration also talks about all outstanding issues. So, in this context, the Swaraj said that Hurriyat Conference has no role in this particular matters. As per the Simla Pact, it is just both the countries have to settle the issue. There is no third party can involve. What the Aziz says is Hurriyat represents the Kashmiri people and India has to respect the United Nations Security Council resolutions. So, and Aziz also stresses on NSA talk shall include on all outstanding issues, including Jammu and Kashmir. Swaraj, she stresses on the National Security Advisor talks shall confine only to the terrorism. The ceasefire violation talk shall follow later. So in this circumstances, the rapid ceasefire violations across the border more than 90 times by the Pakistani forces. So this is the major cause of concern for India. As I said before, between India and Pakistan, any cross-border event or how fragile the borders are, that determines their interaction or engagement with each other. The knee-jerk reactions are common. So as I said before in the previous videos, the India-Pakistan relations, the media management plays a very crucial role. So in this context, though both the countries may desist from talking with each other, but however talks are only the solution. Because both the countries being the nuclear powers now, there is no other alternative, they have to sit and talk. So this is about the issues related to Pakistan. Next is UNP, Sri Lankan Freedom Party, Tamil National Alliance. So all these things, these are the 3 important players with regard to Sri Lanka. In this United National Party, it has recently won the elections, general elections in Sri Lanka. So it has provided for an MOU between all the major parties. So a new hope for a unity government and also a constitutional amendment from that. Or a new constitution is expected to come, which is expected to address the Tamils issue, human rights issue, and also other livelihood concerns related to the Tamils. So in this context, let us try to understand the 13th Constitutional Amendment Act between India and 13th Constitutional Amendment Act of Sri Lanka. Actually, this Amendment Act has come up as an extension of Indo-Sri Lanka Accord between Rajiv Gandhi and Jayawardene. So in this, the Sri Lanka has to establish the provincial councils. But however, the Sri Lankan Freedom Party and JVP, Janata Vimukti Perumana, these 2 parties have vehemently opposed for the establishment of the provincial councils. However, UNP has gained largely from the provincial councils. It was able to develop the secondary rung leadership. So in this context, many people criticized these provincial councils as a waste of expenditure and also they are going to function more as a white elephant. So in this context, the provincial council's establishment, though Jayawardene has created, no land and police powers were being transferred to them. So recently, if you remember, the Oakland Institute study about the regimes in Sri Lanka, it clearly shows that the regime is not interested in transferring of real powers to the provincial governments. So the Jayawardene, instead of creating separate provinces for the Tamilians, he has divided the country into 9 provinces. So And the autonomy to the provinces, the Tamils are so very much feared because of Varadaraja Perumal issue, in which he has declared a unilateral independence in 1990. And later he also took the political asylum in India, which is a dark mark between India and Sri Lanka relationships. From out of this, the Sri Lanka has to grow and has to develop a constitution. So in this context, the development of a national unity government or a ground for the development of a national unity government can be seen as a positive step. And the next is the Korean conundrum. So from 1950 to 53 there was a Korean war, and this Korean war theoretically was never ended. There was an armistice. So it means that it's a temporary cessation of war or temporary cessation of the hostilities in aspiration for a permanent settlement or permanent peace. So there was no ceasefire agreement. So it means technically they are at war even today. So in this context, recently there was a landmine blast in the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. So the North Korea, said to be implanted these landmines, which has led to the, almost near killing of 2 South Korean soldiers. Then South Korea has started anti-North propaganda, which was actually prohibited in the demilitarized zone. Now, the dangers to this situation are the North Korea is in 2006 became a nuclear power, and North Korea is not under a responsible leadership, and there is a huge famine, a drought is prevailing in North Korea as of now. There has to be a diversionary tactic for Kim Jong-un with regard to the North Korea. And the assertiveness of South Korea is due to the support it is getting from United States, and it is also under the nuclear umbrella cover of the United States. So it means that the Korean Peninsula, is it going to be a new nuclear flashpoint? That's what is the major question. So in this context, the China is the only country which has some good offices in North Korea which it can use to diffuse the situation. So if it wants to show itself as a regional or a global power, it has to involve itself and solve these particular issues. So this is about Korea. In this case, remember that even there was a small tree between North Korea and South Korea. It was said to be planted by the father of the North Korea. So some people have cut down the branches of this tree, which also has led to the tensions between North Korea and South Korea. So the relations between Korean countries are so fragile. This situation clearly explains that. So Kim Jong-un has given an ultimatum that if South Korea do not stop the propaganda, it has to face the adverse consequences. In that way, Korean Peninsula has become a flashpoint now. And next one is related to the religious freedoms in India. So it is the Jains. So there is a religious practice called as Santara in Jains. What is meant by this Santara? It is fast on to death. The Santara is nothing but the fast on to death which the Jains practice. So in this case, the High Court of Rajasthan in Nikhil Soni versus Union of India, it has declared that it is violative of the Article 21 and it is interpreted as a suicide and punishable under Indian Penal Code. So in this case, the dilemma is, so that Santara, a religious practice, does it come under the scope of Article 25 or not? Then, does Indian Constitution provides for right to death or not? Or right to die or not? These are the two constitutional questions we have to answer. The Article 25 provides for a right to freedom of conscience and right to or freedom to profess, practice and propagate religion. But however, these are not absolute rights. These are restricted under the grounds of public order, health, morality and other recognized fundamental rights. Why these restrictions have come? In the Constitutional Assembly debates, these restrictions are majorly to avoid or to fight the social inequalities that are existing because of religious practices. Now, in the Supreme Court, in this particular judgment, it is also based on the Supreme Court judgment with regard to the Shirur Mutt case. In Shirur Mutt case, the Article 25 protects only those exercises that are considered as essential religious practices. And in the Gankaur case, what the Supreme Court said is, so the right to death it is not available under this particular constitution. So the right to life also includes right to dignified life, but it shall not be considered as ending the life of an individual under unnatural circumstances. So if you take the Gankaur case, and with regard to this Shirur Mutt case, you can see that the right to death is not been under the Constitution of India. And also, the Article 25 is not an absolute right. Only the essential religious practices, these are being considered are under the Article 25. So in this context, the Rajasthan High Court, what it has said is, the Santara is not an essential religious practice mentioned in the Jain text. And so, it has declared it as the suicide and has to be punished under the provisions of the Indian Penal Code. Many people see it as intrusion into the religious matters of the Jains. And next is, with regard to the banking reforms, the CSL Narasimhan article says that, are they the big bang reforms? No, hardly. So he tries to take most of these reforms which the government is taking up, these are flowing from the Nayak reforms. So with regard to the Nayak committee, so what it has said is this: most of the governmental banks are unable to perform. The reason being is excessive regulation, or also fear of CVC, CAG, etc. So the need of the hour is autonomy and leads to political interference in their functioning. So what it has said is, the laws are existing laws, they have to be repealed, especially the SBI Act, Bank Nationalization Act, all these have to be repealed, which are giving the government to hold greater than 50% of shares in these nationalized banks. So the second thing is, the government shareholding in these banks has to be transferred to a holding company that is called as a bank investment company. So because what this bank investment company will do is, it will act as a core investment company, and because of this, the banks will more function like as a private companies, and they also get the necessary autonomies from the appointments made by the government of India. And the third thing is, the temporarily before we create bank investment companies, we have to have BBBs, that is called as a Bank Board Bureau, to appoint the bank directors. It says a transfer or intermediate arrangement. So once the bank investment company comes into existence, this can be done away with. So now the bank investment company is the major recommendation. And the second thing is improving the autonomy of the function to differentiate between what is a fraud and what is really a decision based on good intentions but went wrong. So we have to be able to decide between these two. So once the bank's government shareholding comes down in the bank, automatically the role of CVC and CAG will decrease. It increases the decision making in the government bank. As also the bank investment company is going to function autonomously, so then the appointments will be streamlined and becomes more independent. This is expected to bring the change in the banking sector, especially with regard to the appointments at the highest level. So these are being implemented by the government as of now. So this is about the Nayak committee recommendations. Thank you very much. All the best.